Welcome to Healthcare Musings, a podcast dedicated to the discussion of critical care, the medical field, and healthcare in general. Here is your host, Dr. Hesham Hasabala. Hello, everyone. Happy to have you with me. We're talking about a Gallup poll that was released on April 19th, 2024, and it talked about sleep and U.S. adults. And so, beginning of the press release that came with the Gallup poll, it says, for the first time in Gallup polling since 2001, a majority of U.S. adults, 57%, say they would feel better if they got more sleep, while 42% say they get as much sleep as they need. And they say that this is a reversal of the figures that were last measured in 2013, when 56% of Americans said the sleep that they got was what they needed, and 43% said they were not. Okay, so and it's very interesting that the number of Americans who report getting 8 hours or more of sleep decreased, and it was about a quarter are getting 8+ hours, and the percentage of Americans who are getting 5 hours or less has risen to 20%. So the majority get 8 or more hours of sleep, but the number of people who are getting less sleep is rising, and they found that fewer women than men are getting the sleep that they need. Younger Americans are getting less sleep than they need. Younger women get less sleep than younger men. And what's interesting is that they also mentioned that Americans are more stressed today than they were 3 decades ago. So let's see here. The new poll says that 63% of those who report wanting more sleep say they frequently experience stress, compared to 31% of those who say they get the sleep they need. And so it's interesting. Is this because, are they stressed out because they're getting less sleep, or are they stressed out, or is the stress causing them to get less sleep? It's kind of a classic chicken and egg scenario. And I found this poll interesting because sleep is, and I speak as a sleep specialist, I'm a board certified sleep specialist. Sleep is so important for overall health and well-being. I cannot stress that enough. When, as a physician in training, in medical school and training, a lot of times we skimp on sleep. I remember when I was on my surgery rotation, they used to say, "You eat when you can, you sleep when you can, and don't ever mess with the pancreas." And of course, they were more vulgar than that. And that was just the way it is. You sleep when you can. You get an hour here, an hour there, 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there, and then you keep going. Yes, it's battle stories, and that's how it used to be. And I think, skimping on your sleep is so dangerous. I see it all the time in the intensive care unit, that patients who are sleep deprived actually become delirious. They actually have altered sensorium. Some of them even have hallucinations, all from sleep deprivation. Myself, when I was in medical school and I had a long night of studying, I literally had auditory hallucinations. I heard a voice screaming in the front row. I would always sit in the front row in the lecture hall. And I heard a voice screaming, and I woke up and I didn't see anything. There's nobody screaming. So that's just known. And in fact, if you look at the classic sleep deprivation experiments that they did on rats in the University of Chicago, they had an apparatus where you had 2 rats separated on a disc by like a barrier, and it's over water. And if one rat sleeps, the other will fall in the water. So that's how they kept both rats awake. And they just wanted to see what happens if you totally sleep deprive a rat. And they die. They literally die after a certain number of days. So then they went back and they said, okay, what happens if we deprive them of REM sleep, which is rapid eye movement sleep, which is typically the dreaming sleep, quote unquote dreaming sleep. They also died, but it took them longer on average to die if you deprive them of REM sleep. Okay. So sleep deprivation is just so dangerous, and it has negative impacts on health and negative impact, and it definitely causes increased stress. Um, and for whatever reason, we people just say, well, I can't. I have too many things to do. I'm just going to skimp on my sleep. I see my kids even doing this in school, and it's so bad. It's so bad for you. You have to prioritize your sleep. It's so important. It allows the brain to rest. It allows the body to rest. I remember when I was training for the marathon, and I was a lot younger. This was more than 10 years ago. I was a lot younger. And after just a good night's sleep, a lot of my physical ailments recovered. That's harder now as I'm getting older. I'm finding. At the same time, it's so important that we get the amount of sleep. Most adults need 7 to 8 hours of sleep. Some can do just fine with 6 hours of sleep. Others cannot function unless they get 9 hours of sleep. On average, 7 to 8 hours of sleep is something we should all shoot for. Um, and 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 so I think I just highlight this survey just to point out how important sleep is and good sleep hygiene. So what we as sleep specialists talk about good sleep hygiene. So making sure that you try to, you know, um, avoid anything stimulating close to bedtime, that you try to reserve bed only for sleeping and sexual activity, and not like watching television or on your phone or checking Instagram or TikTok or whatever. Trying to um, uh, make sure that the room is dark, and that you try to minimize caffeine intake uh, closer, as you get closer to bedtime. All those things are super important. And if you can't sleep, you know, get up. Don't just sit in bed lying. I mean, if you're in bed for 8 hours but you only sleep six, that's actually more fatiguing than if you only sleep a solid 6 hours in bed. So if I tell my patients, if they can't sleep after a certain amount of time, 10, 20, 30 minutes, get up, read, do something, and then come back to bed when you're sleepy. Um, it just having good sleep habits, good sleep hygiene, uh, avoiding alcohol. Alcohol definitely can it increases slow wave sleep in the beginning, but as the alcohol gets but it suppresses REM sleep, and as the alcohol gets metabolized, then you get REM rebound, and people who have sleep apnea, that causes worse sleep deprivation, and sometimes even people have nightmares. So I think this study, just this Gallup poll, not a study, this Gallup poll, just to me emphasizes this such importance to get sleep. In fact, if you are sleep deprived, you actually crave carbs. I learned that you crave carbs when you are sleep deprived, and so if we have a chronically sleep deprived society, everyone's craving carbs, and that can lead to weight gain, which can lead to the development of sleep apnea, which further disrupts sleep, and gets to be a vicious cycle. And so, very important. Get good sleep. Don't skimp on sleep. It's super important, especially as we get older. And I figure, in the Gallup poll, the older Americans are, they have less. Maybe they have less things going on. Maybe more of them are retired and they're able to sleep well. Um, don't wait until retirement to start getting good sleep. Prioritize good sleep. Make sure you get enough sleep. It's so important. Anyway, thanks so much for your time and attention. And until next time, this is Dr. Hashem Hasabala signing off on the Healthcare Musings podcast.